Good morning. You are listening to National Real Estate Auction Radio. I am your host, Doug Dennison, and we are broadcasting from beautiful St. Augustine, Florida, the nation's oldest city at WFOY 1240 AM. Through the power of the Internet, this program is being streamed worldwide on 1240news.com. The show will also be archived on RowellAuctions.com as they are the host of this program. Additionally, the show will be posted on YouTube.com. We're going to be talking about real estate auctions, past auctions, upcoming auctions, different real estate markets across the country. We've got a lot of topics today. Help us out. We've got several key VIP people calling in, and I want to thank you on this Friday for listening in. This is a show to educate the public about real estate auctions and to provide a format to promote auctions. Additionally, the people who listen are, number one, the general public, but also real estate investors, real estate brokers, real estate media, bankers, bankruptcy attorneys, all that kind of great background and people who want to know about real estate auctions. I think not only to use them, but also to see if they could get a good deal. One of our big sponsors, of course, is Rowell Auctions. They are a national real estate auction firm that started in 1936. They do online auctions, on-site auctions, and ballroom auctions. They have offices in Florida, New Jersey, California, Georgia, and have alliances with auctioneers and real estate brokers across the country. They do government auctions, bank auctions, bankruptcy auctions, and much more. They have a big auction schedule coming up, and check out their website at www.rowellauctions.com. That's www.rowellauctions.com, or you can call them on their toll-free number, which is 800-323-8388. That's 800-323-8388. We are going to continue talking about the auction bill, and, I name it the auction bill. It's a bill that is up in Washington, D.C. It's the H.R., which is the House Bill 1734. It's the Civilian Property Realignment Act, and that's sponsored by Representative Jeff Denham, who's out of California. And also the other bill from the Senate is S.1503, and that's Scott Brown. We'll get back to that later. We'll have a call in, but right now we've got our first caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Doug. This is Patrick Pilati.
Well, Patrick, thank you so much for calling in, and you are from the West Coast, I believe, so hopefully you've got a cup of coffee and are up and about.
Already done all that and ready for a brand new day.
Well, wonderful. Tell us what you do, Patrick.
Okay, I'm the CEO for LFI Analytics. We're a document examination firm that offers litigation support to both homeowners and their attorneys and also lenders. We have expert witness services, and we're currently developing new products and services in order to assist in the housing recovery. Our biggest concern right now is recovery is going nowhere, as we all know, and there are various needed products that can help stimulate it, and we're trying to bring them to market right now.
Some of the needs that you feel as a professional in this business, and we'll get to your background in just a second, but what are the things we need to kickstart this economy and kickstart this housing market?
Well, the biggest thing for housing is for the government to get out of the housing industry and get out of the way. We have to let the foreclosures continue. To give you an example, right now there's talk in Washington about expanding the HARP program. That's a homeowner affordable refinance program. The plan is that they will allow 125% and greater loan-to-value refinancing. This will be done without verification of income, verification of credit, or even appraisals. The purpose is so that people can supposedly refinance, save a ton of money with the lower interest rates, and then that's going to save homes and improve the economy. The problem with that is that the government is not recognizing anytime you have loan-to-values above 125%, the default rate on those properties is 50%. It doesn't matter if you reduce the payment, anything. A homeowner looks at this and they realize very simply that, okay, we're never going to make our money back, so why bother? Let's just bail out, buy a new home down the road, and not worry about it. That is a major part of the problem right there. The government has to get out.
Well, are they? What is the government's thinking on this? Is that they can, what's it called? Kick the can down the road a bit? Is that what they're trying to do? Kind of a stall tactic?
That's exactly what they're looking at. The idea is by refinancing, and to give you an example, they're using homes with at a $200,000 loan amount.
Mm-hmm.
If they reduce the interest rate by 1%,
mm-hmm.
they're going to save the homeowner $119 per month. They're saying that this is going to prevent all these homes that are currently not in foreclosure from going into foreclosure.
Mm-hmm. You
and I both know the cost of gas, food, utilities is going to eat up that $119 anyway. So, as you say, it's simply kicking the can down the road.
Right, right. Well, tell us your background, Patrick.
I was in mortgage lending for 12 years. In 2007, I was confronted in California, like the rest of the country, with problems related to the foreclosures and poor performing loans, subprime especially. At that time, I started getting involved with attorneys for homeowners and looking at ways in which we could attempt to save people's homes. Generally speaking, it was trying to go the predatory lending route with lawsuits. That ended up being an absolute failure. We looked at MERS and all the other issues, and quite frankly, about a year and a half ago, I came to the conclusion that homeowners generally did not have defensible positions, whether from legal standards or from the fact of lack of home affordability.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started to change the business model from foreclosure assistance to looking at ways we can improve everything for the future.
Well, you were around in the RTC days, is that correct?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
I entered the industry a little bit after that.
Okay. The RTC, basically, the savings and loans, they went down the tube, and the government stepped in and said, we can't allow them to continue, and so we need to sell off all of these real estate assets, and instead of holding the properties or putting them in files in back of the file cabinet, they sold them. And it ended up as a stimulus because, if there is an overhang of property that is just, in the background, then the real buyers are saying, well, maybe I should wait. Maybe I should wait to look at what inventory is out there now, because I know there's another, 50% that is coming through the foreclosures. Things have already been foreclosed. And so the RTC sold it, and everybody was concerned about, you're going to flood the market, and this is not going to be good. And it turned out it was very good. They sold the property. And one of the things, and and people say, well, geez, some people made a lot of money on RTC properties that they bought and sold. Well, they did it by auction, which, of course, this is what I do, and this is why I'm doing this show. Real estate auctions are the fairest and most transparent way to sell anything. And if it's especially in the government situation, if it is a property that people are interested in, one of them is going to say, okay, I'll give you, let's pick a number, $5 million for it, but I need 60 days due diligence. And what happens then is they look at it for 60 days. The seller has to take it off the market, and what they do is they come back and say, there's a problem here. I'm only going to give you $4 million for it. That's number one of the offers. Number two is somebody will say, okay, I'll give you $5 million, but you give me financing, and I want very favorable terms. Or another person will say, I'll give you $4.8 million, but I need the closing extended not 30 days, but 90 days. And so it's comparing apples to oranges, and what an auction does is it puts everybody on the same playing field, and so everybody knows the terms, knows that it's an as-is contract. It's not contingent upon financing. It's not contingent upon anything. You need to belly up, put 10% down, and also close in 30 days. And that everybody is on the same playing field. So when you get a bid of, whatever it is, $4.8 million, well, that's the market. And if it was worth more, then somebody else would have paid more. And so I'm trying to, and being a very big promoter of trying to get some of these properties that are hidden to be sold, and to allow all the money that's out there, because there's real estate investors that are out there that want to buy. They want to buy commercial properties. They want to buy the houses. They want to buy the houses so that they can probably, in many areas, rent them and then wait for appreciation and then sell them maybe 5 years down the road. And so these are the kind of things that I think would be a help if we got banks and government to sell these properties as they're available right now. Your comments?
I would agree totally with that approach. It makes one heck of a lot of sense. There's many different avenues we can work with in unloading all these real estate properties, and your solution is certainly very viable in many different ways, and it should be a part of any particular program, whether it involves 3 different methodologies, 10 different methodologies. We need it, and we need all other sorts of types. Now, my only fear is that we know good and well that the foreclosure crisis is going to worsen. I was reading online yesterday the newest Fitch report and from the Fitch Ratings Agency, and this was of incredible concern to me because of the prime paper mortgage market. All the people with good credit, they now have a 12% 60-day late or greater delinquency. 33% of the properties are underwater for prime borrowers, and they're estimating it will go up to 50% in the near term. Again, loan-to-value is the key element in whether or not a loan is going to default now when you reach negative equity. So essentially what we're looking at is now a prime mortgage crisis developing. And what concerns me is that we will go into what I call a death spiral for loan-to-value. As more homes come on the market, home values are going to fall from the foreclosures. which is going to result in greater negative equity, which is going to result in, once again, more foreclosures occurring.
Mm-hmm.
Any methodology that we can come up with that will go ahead and essentially liquidate those properties as soon as we can, similar to your auctions, is something that's going to be absolutely needed. There's no way to put off what's happening with the economy. We're in now the greatest debt deleveraging cycle since the Depression. It's going to continue. It has to continue until prices come in line with wages. And as we saw this week, wages have dropped over the past decade by 7%. So,
is it just that they're concerned if they foreclose on more properties, and then they're going to have a glut on the market? I mean, they already got a glut on the market. I mean, people aren't buying for a variety of reasons. Number one, a lot of them can't get loans. So that's number one. And number two, all of this investment money, as I indicated prior to, they're on the sidelines. They're waiting for the right time. You never want to buy at the top of the heap, but you always want to buy at the bottom, and they're trying to figure out the bottom. And they're saying, I can invest, pick a number, $500 million for this this real estate portfolio, whether it's government, bank, whatever. But you know what? If I make a mistake, and the property values go down another 10% in 3 months, I made a bad decision. So how do you, and you've been in this business for a while, let's say you have the $500 million worth of property, $500 million worth of money that you can invest. You're out there trying to make a buck. I have no problem with you making a buck or investors making a buck. I think that's the only way to do it. We want people to buy these properties, fix them up. No one is talking about the fact that while these properties remain dormant, not being used, they are vandalized and they are costing money for maintenance, and they're still going down in value. And so how do you, and I'm doing a scenario here, what's it going to take for you to get off the sidelines and take your $500 million worth of monies, because it's Patrick's REIT or whatever, to invest in these properties?
It's funny you should ask that question, because I'm actually in touch with a couple of different investment entities with literally $2 to $3 billion every quarter, in which they have in order to purchase properties. They're only going with commercial properties right now being put up for sale by Fannie or Freddie or the FDIC, or actually it is the FDIC. And the reason being is they find that there's going to be a bit more stability in the commercial side, although we see signs that it's absolutely worsening. They are not willing to touch the residential market yet for essentially two reasons. One, they do see that the value of homes are going to drop further, and in the areas they're interested in, which are Florida, Texas, California, Arizona, Nevada, they know they're going to drop at least 20%. More important is the fact that they're having issues with the particular lenders and servicers. They want to maintain the values as high as they can so that they can reduce or eliminate a large portion of the losses. And so they're being unreasonable in what they're trying to get for the properties. What needs to happen in that case is, and I hate to use a word, but we've got to do it, is have some type of financial bailout for the lenders so that they can sell these properties at a loss, and we can when I use the term bailout, arrange some type of recapitalization of the lender so that they don't go completely under. And that's one of the biggest problems right now associated on the lender side. Now with Fannie and Freddie, I have no idea why they're not engaging in this, unless they have the fear that, okay, they've already been bailed out $250 billion. Will the taxpayer allow for more bailouts? And of course, with Fannie and Freddie, if they do have to be bailed out, will the taxpayer demand an end to federal guarantees, which essentially destroys Fannie and Freddie?
It's a tough problem, and I appreciate you being. This is your second time on the show. You always bring up good points. Some of the articles that you've already written, there's an article on promoting housing recovery, another one resolving the foreclosure crisis, forces facing the housing market, analysis of qualified residential mortgage program, comprehensive homeowner financial recovery plan, a new paradigm, HAMP equals foreclosure. I mean, you've got lots of them and are considered an expert in your field. How do people get a hold of you?
They can go to my website. It's LFI Analytics. That's spelled LFI-ANALYTICS.com. And the contact information is there. They can email me directly at patrick@lfi-analytics.com. And I'm always available to take calls, even though the wife yells at me when I do so on a Sunday. But it's a part of the business. There's so much going on. And curiously, right now I'm doing a white paper. The white paper is covering the recording system in the U.S. as of today, which is still based upon industry standards going back to the 1700s, how it needs to be updated, and perhaps that there is a legitimate need for a MERS-like entity to go ahead and complement the system. Of course, that's going to raise some hackles among people just to hear the words at MERS, and there might be a legitimate use for it. But I think this paper is going to really open up a few eyes.
Patrick Pilati, thank you so much for being on the show. Again, thank you for calling in on a Friday, and always you give great insight to the problem and suggest some great ideas to solve it. Patrick, thank you so much for calling in today.
My pleasure. Have a good weekend.
You bet. That was Patrick Pilati. He's from California on the West Coast. We got him real early in the morning for him, and I thank him for calling in. We're going to go for about a 4-minute break, and then we'll be back. Exciting stuff, and we will be right back. Again, thank you for listening.
It's time to visit the St. John's Flea Market. Great deals every weekend. Every weekend there's more, too. Great bargains and great food and those great deals at the St. John's Flea Market. Get off I-95 at State Road 207. That's I-95 at 207. And if you want to be a vendor, hey, booth rentals start at only $10 a day. Churches and charities, you can get a free booth 2 days a month. And for everybody else, there's always great deals at the St. John's Flea Market. Call them up, 824-4210, or go to stjohnsfleamarket.com.
When the University of Florida dominates, you win. Buy any new or used vehicle at Bozard Ford Lincoln, and if the Florida football team shuts out Florida State on November 26th, Bozard Ford Lincoln will make your payments for 1 full year.
Well, wait a minute, Jeff. What if some of our customers are Florida State fans?
What do you mean?
Well, what if Florida State shuts out Florida?
Okay, so let's say you make your pick, and if your team shuts out the other team on November 26th, Bozard Ford Lincoln makes your payments for 1 full year.
That sounds better.
Great. It's that easy. Take your pick, Florida or Florida State. And if your team shuts out the other team on November 26th, Bozard Ford Lincoln will make your payments for 1 full year.
Well, that's a pretty easy decision for me. Life is good in the swamp, baby.
Go to BozardFord.com for complete details.
Bozard Ford Lincoln, St. Augustine.
Licensed by the state as a skilled nursing facility and certified for a broad range of payer types, the Ponce Therapy Care Center's team of professionals is committed to providing the best nursing care and rehabilitation services. Choosing a skilled nursing facility for a loved one is always a difficult decision. At the Ponce Therapy Care Center, our admissions and social service staff assist you in making an informed, caring decision. We provide information about our facility, determine your payment options, and strategize about your loved one's regimen of care, length of stay, and expected discharge to home. At the Ponce Therapy Care Center, we are proud that over 90% of those admitted to our rehabilitation program successfully return to home. In an industry that is often seen as the final alternative, our goal is to become your first option and facility of choice for skilled nursing and rehab services. The Ponce Therapy Care Center is located at 1999 Old Moultrie Road. Call us at 824-3311 or visit us online at poncecarecenter.com.
When you're moving to a new location, whether it's across town or across the country, it can be stressful on you and your belongings. That's why you call Two Men in a Truck. They can move a few items from room to room, rearrange the furniture, or carefully pack everything and deliver it safely to your new location. Two Men in a Truck also sells boxes and can give you good advice on how to pack things yourself. When you need friendly, reliable moving services for home or business, call Two Men in a Truck, the movers who care.
Are you one of the millions of Floridians facing a foreclosure? Are you afraid there's nothing you can do? I'm local attorney Tom Pycraft of Pycraft Legal Services. Our office is located on US 1 South in St. Augustine, and we can help you understand your rights when facing a foreclosure. You do not have to deal with this alone. Visit us on the web at pycraftlaw.com or call today for a free legal review of your situation, 940-0060. That's 940-0060.
All right, we are back. This is the National Real Estate Auction Radio Show. I'm your host, Doug Dennison. We are broadcasting from beautiful St. Augustine, Florida. We've got another caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Morning. How you doing? This is Brett Manley.
Hey, Brett. Well, thank you so much for calling. Very happy that you took the time to talk to us today and talk to me. Tell us what you do, Brett, and a little bit about your background.
Certainly, and just let me say I appreciate you having me on. Happy to have the opportunity to discuss this. I serve as Congressman Jeff Denham's legislative director. Mr. Denham is the chairman of the Subcommittee on Economic Development, Public Buildings, and Emergency Management, which is a subcommittee in T&I, the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. Recently, as you know, we've been doing a lot of work on the Civilian Property Realignment Act, which we marked up yesterday. And my primary responsibility to date has been, writing that bill and pushing it forward in conjunction with Mr. Denham's efforts to reform the way the federal government manages its public buildings.
Brett, how do you become a legislative director? What is your background?
My background, I started out actually in sales after I graduated college, and I hated it. And like most people out here in D.C., you move here, you don't have a job, and you couch surf for a while. I ended up in Congressman Gary Miller's office a little over 4 years ago, and you work your way up, like most places in life. And you started out, I started out as an intern, and I worked up to legislative assistant, and then a senior legislative assistant handling financial services policy for Mr. Miller. And then when Mr. Denham replaced George Donovich in the 19th District of California, I was fortunate enough to be offered this position, managing his legislative department, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, most people, and I'm probably included in that most, don't have a real knowledge of what a senator or a congressman does. Give us a typical day in Congressman Denham's busy schedule, if you would. Again, Congressman Jeff Denham from California, and we're talking to Brett Manley, who's his legislative director.
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, because the best part about all of this is every day is different. I'll just kind of walk you through yesterday.
Yeah.
We got to the office yesterday about 7:30. We started with prep time for the day. We had a subcommittee hearing that Mr. Denham was chairing on his efforts to reform and make changes to FEMA, the emergency managed response system we had. So we had a couple hours there with the administrator of FEMA, Craig Bugate. hearing was over about 10:40, so we went straight into prep for our markup. Markup is kind of our parlance for voting on a bill in committee. We went straight into a full T&I committee markup on a variety of bills. One of those bills was the Civilian Property Realignment Act. We were fortunate that that passed, and we were able to kind of fend off a bunch of amendments from some of our colleagues we felt would damage our efforts. After that, Mr. Denham had to go vote, so he runs over to the Capitol, went for a vote. Then we had a press conference immediately following votes on his trip recently. He went to Afghanistan over the last weekend there to visit troops in the field and see some of the hospitals and visit with wounded warriors in Afghanistan, kind of get a first-hand glimpse. He himself is a veteran, so that was very important to him. So we did that, and then back to the office for some meetings with industry groups and constituents and people who are in D.C. to let their congressmen know what it is they care about. We had another round of votes. Then he had to go to a meeting with the speaker. He had a freshman class meeting so they could talk about their issues. Then we had a joint session of Congress with the South Korean Prime Minister, after which we had another set of votes. And then there was another group of constituents that was in town that wanted a tour of the place. So, late night, Mr. Denham gave a tour to some constituents, went over to the Capitol, and, I think his day finished at about 8:30, 9 o'clock. He went home, called me, because he had a conversation with our friends over in the Office of Management and Budget about our CPRA bill, and we're back at it all again today.
Well, as you say, it's most people don't understand what y'all do. I was there a week ago, and I was pleased to meet you and made the rounds. I'm very interested on the auction side of things on your bill, which is H.R. 1734, which is called the Civilian Property Realignment Act, and also Senator Brown's bill, which is on the Senate side, which is basically the same thing. How do those mesh? And I know you're working together with Senator Brown's efforts. How do they mesh? And as the general public really doesn't know how things work, what happens from here?
Okay. Well, we're very appreciative of Senator Brown's efforts. This came about, Mr. Denham has been talking about this for a long time. He actually did this in the State House when he was in California as a state senator, efforts to lead property reform. Excuse me. And, we introduced our bill, I think, back in March or April. I can't remember off the top of my head. And we got a call. There had been some interest on this issue as well. The president had mentioned in his State of the Union address there had been some interest in this from our senator colleagues, and the jurisdiction on the Senate side falls within Senator Brown's committee. Not that he chairs, but the committee that he sits in. And so, we took a call from his staff, and they expressed interest. So we shared our base text with them, and they took our base text and made some, tweaks to things they thought were more in line with what they wanted to see, and they introduced their bill, and we're working together on this. Essentially what we're trying for, we got out of committee yesterday, so the next step is to get something on the floor. Unfortunately, there was a party line vote in committee yesterday. We don't think those were issues over CPRA. We think everybody, or not CPRA, I'm sorry, the actual BRAC commission process. We're very optimistic that's a very bipartisan effort. The administration obviously has a version of their own bill that they've been pushing around, but we'll get to the floor, and if we're fortunate enough to pass it on the floor, that would be then sent to the Senate. The Senate would have the option of taking our bill and passing it, or if they saw it fit for their efforts to take up Senator Brown's bill, pass it. If that were the case, they took up Senator Brown's bill, we would go to what they call conference committee. Basically, each side, each house, would appoint conferees, typically the bill sponsor, plus the relevant chairman on the committee of jurisdiction. So it would be us, and then our other subcommittee chairman and T&I, as well as with the Senate side. Ours would obviously all be Republicans, since Republicans control the House, and theirs would be Democrats. Democrats control the Senate. And then we would try to iron out the differences in conference. One important point about conference is you can only choose between our option or their option or somewhere in between. You can't add something new.
All right.
So, you can't add a totally new provision. You can only take something from ours, take something from theirs, or find somewhere in between those two.
Okay.
And so, it's kind of like a negotiation. How are we going to merge these together? And you ultimately, if you find agreement, the conference agreement goes back to the House and back to the Senate, and if both houses pass it, goes straight to the Senate or the President.
Well, let's go back a step because, again, you and I know what we're talking about in regards to the Civilian Property Realignment Act. What is it exactly? What is Congressman Denham attempting to do?
So essentially, what we have here in the federal government is over 1 million. We have over 1 million. I think 1.4 million is the rough estimate. Properties, and these are anything from the Department of State building, the building I sit in right now, the Department of Agriculture field offices. We have vacant properties and lots all over the country, and the GAO, which is the unofficial accountant kind of the federal government, has listed property disposal as one of the major problems in the federal government. We have all these properties that are sitting around, costing the taxpayer dollars.
Yes,
and we can't get rid of them for a litany of issues that arise when you try to do these things, from politics. Your local congressperson doesn't want you to sell XYZ building, or some department thinks they're going to want to use it for some reason, so they place a hold on it, or what have you. So there's all these issues, and we've been talking a lot about debt in this country and the deficit that we're running, and the fact that we don't have any money. And a really good way to raise revenue without raising taxes, without cutting programs, is to sell properties that we don't need.
Right.
So we tried to see what would be the best way to get this done. And we looked at the BRAC process that was initiated in the late 80s through the 90s, and I think the last BRAC round was 2005. BRAC stands for Base Realignment and Closure. This is what the Department of Defense did in order to consolidate their defense bases, the military installations, because they had excess property as well, and they knew the politics of the situation wasn't going to allow them to select things individually, so they set up this commission who was going to make decisions, and those decisions were considered en bloc, and it was up or down. You either accepted all of them or you accepted none of them. And what that allowed to happen was the tough decisions to get made, because individuals couldn't select one or two or some specific property somewhere and say, no, not that one. You had to take the whole thing. So we thought that was a good idea. And so what we're doing here is we're setting up a commission composed of private sector experts, public sector experts, that will survey the federal landscape about what buildings we own and decide, we have 2 buildings, let's say, in Wichita, Kansas. Well, we could probably fit everybody in one building into the other one, so we're just going to move everybody over, and we're going to sell that one. So you get the property sale, you get a reduced size of government, you save money on, now we're only operating one building, and you get rid of the other one. Or we've waived, in the process of their decision-making, we've waived all of these laws that make it possible for the Department of Health and Human Services or Housing and Urban Development to lay claim on excess property, so they won't be able to hold up the process. So essentially what we want to do is restructure and reform, consolidate, get out of costly lease space and into owned space, the federal property inventory. We want to make it smaller.
Well, your bill, again, it's H.R. 1734, and I urge everyone to tell their congressman to vote for this bill and to support this bill and do anything that they can to get this done. Congressman Denham is exactly right. We need to help the budget, okay? And we need to not only help the budget by bringing in income, we need to help the budget by not spending money on properties that we don't need. And that's the thing that I'm going to say most taxpayers don't realize, how much it costs to have that building with insurance, maintenance, security, vandalism, all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to, I know that you have co-sponsors on your bill from both sides of the aisle, which is very, very good. But you talked about President Obama's State of the Union address, saying that this is what we should do. We should sell some of our surplus properties. Then he came back on his budget address on, I believe it was February 14th of this year, and I'm going to quote one of his sayings here. It says, to take one example, by getting rid of 14,000 office buildings, lots, and government-owned properties we no longer need, we can save taxpayers billions of dollars. well, what a great idea. And if we can do this and we can get this thing passed and enacted, I think that's going to help in a great deal of areas. And so I want to thank you for all your time that you've put into this. Why did Congressman Denham become a congressman? It's a great question, because it's as you told me from yesterday, it's very demanding.
It is. It can be a strain, when you see it up close and personally, and it's part of your life. It's oftentimes easy to forget, but it's a lot of traveling back and forth. But he likes to tell this story. He's from the Central Valley, and education in California is a big deal, and he was complaining, about the state of public education for his kids, and he likes to tell a story about how his wife told him that he should do something about it. So he ran for the state senate to do something about the state of education, and he was fortunate enough to win a state senate seat and spend 8 years in state senate. And in California we have term limits, and he was termed out, so he wasn't sure what he was going to do. And George Radonovich, who was the congressman person that previously held the 19th congressional district, was retiring, and they were good friends. And Mr. Radonovich asked Mr. Denham to run for Congress, and Mr. Denham felt like he could provide a good perspective out here, and obviously the country was going through a lot of changes, and so he decided that it would be good for him and the country, and something that he wanted to do. So he ran for Congress and had a contested primary that he was fortunate enough to win, and here we are.
Well, that's a great example of somebody doing something and not complaining anymore, but saying, I'm going to do something. And I think we all need to do a lot more of that. And it's so easy to go home and talk to your wife and complain about this and look at the news and complain about that. But if you really want to help the country, you need to get involved in politics, and this is what you've chosen to do, and do a fine job. I sent you actually a letter last week, or maybe it was early this week. We talk about these properties that are not being used, are surplus, in the cost of them. And we talked about, I did an auction. I was the auction project manager of an auction for the state of Michigan a couple years back. And this was a big thing, that the state of Michigan needed budget monies. They had problems with the budget, and they weren't balancing it. And so they came up with a great idea, and what they're going to do is sell a state hospital that hadn't been used for 4 or 5 years because of the change of laws and how we care for the mentally people that need mental health care. And what they did, we auctioned it. And again, auction is the fairest and most transparent way to sell a property, because it takes everybody out of saying, I'll give you this, but I want that in return. I want to give you this, but I want financing. Or give me I'm going to put less down payment, and I need a greater closing period. It puts everybody on a playing field. We sold that property for $31 million for the state of Michigan, which of course helped them, but it saved $500,000, $500,000 a year in maintenance for that property.
Yeah.
And then you add the wonderful things, that is, okay, now there's a new buyer. Now the new buyer is going to make that property his own, and certainly beautify it from a abandoned property that had been for 4 years. He's going to pay taxes to the local municipalities. He's going to hire people. He's going to get goods and services. It becomes almost like a mini community development project. And if we can just take that one property and just imagine what we could do on a national basis by again, bringing monies in to the budget, making sure we don't pay things for properties that we don't use, and then providing a valuable resource for the local municipalities, because now instead of a federally exempt property that is not being paying taxes, you're going to have somebody that is paying taxes. And so is that like a classic example?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that's exactly, what we're trying to get with here. And a good example is the old post office here in D.C. We had a hearing the first time that this CPRA was mentioned in January. It was a field hearing in the post office. It's abandoned, and the federal government spends $6 million a year just maintaining its abandoned status, and it's right there on Pennsylvania Avenue, blocks from the White House.
Yep.
And what we should be doing is saying, and there is interest in this property. There's a lot of hotel developers that want to come in and put a hotel there, put shops in the bottom floor, and then you have a property generating economic activity, which in turn, like you said, helps the tax base, it helps the local economy, and it's really exactly what we're trying to get with here.
You would need new office equipment. You would need new employees. You would need goods and services, and it's really a mini splurge for the area and all of those small businesses that need some help right now. So I'm very thrilled that you were able to come on today, Brett. How can people, in other words, encourage you all from Congressman Denham and you, Brett Manley, Legislative Director? Is there a website that they can go to and put their comments and say, hey, great job?
Well, certainly probably the best thing to do would be to contact your member of Congress.
Okay.
And just encourage them to co-sponsor the bill, or just lend your support. Call them. You can do anything. Mr. Denham's website is denham.house.gov. If you want to visit us and leave a note or anything, you can. Folks are certainly welcome to call with questions. I'm available. That's my job as well. Certainly contact your member. Let them know it's something that's important to you. We're hopeful that we can get this done. Like we talked about earlier, it's very bipartisan. It's a no-brainer for the American public, we feel, and we're optimistic. I think we're going to get this done.
Well, Brett, thank you so much. Give us your website one more time, because, again, you guys work really hard. The women and men in your office do a fantastic job, and they probably don't get enough praise that they should. So if people who are listening could send in a little email saying, hey, great job, appreciate all your hard work, I think that's something we should do. What is your website one more time?
It's Denham, DENHAM .house.gov. And we really appreciate it. I really appreciate you having me on and giving me the opportunity. And, we appreciate your work and the value that you provide to the economy. And we're hopeful that we can get this passed and get some business generated for you.
Well, very good. Hey, thank you, Brett. And again, Brett Manley, Legislative Director of Congressman Jeff Denham from California, who is the sponsor of H.R. 1734, the Civilian Property Realignment Act. You have a great weekend. I know you've got lots to do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right.
Well, what a nice interview. Brett is somebody that I met with last week, and he talked about the schedule. The schedule is nuts for them. They're running back and forth all day, all night, early in the morning. They do a fantastic job. We should really try to thank some of the people that are really doing good work in there. They're trying the hardest they can. This is a tough, hard economic time. And this bill, which is H.R. 1734, the Civilian Property Realignment Act, Congressman Jeff Denham is the sponsor of it. I haven't seen the update, but they did have like 26 co-sponsors, both Democrats and Republicans. I already told you about the fact that our president thought this was a great idea in his State of the Union address, and also on February 14th when, again, he said, quote, to take just one example, by getting rid of 14,000 office buildings, lots, and government-owned properties we no longer need, we can save taxpayers billions of dollars. it's important to say that this has nothing to do with housing. This is office buildings, warehouses, lots, land parcels, all that kind of wonderful stuff. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
MarkNet Alliance is a national, membership-based network of 41 auction companies. Our companies are successful auction professionals with proven track records and thriving businesses. The MarkNet companies have a staff of over 540 employees who are working hard every day to meet the goals of their clients during our ever-changing economy. MarkNet companies are able to achieve these goals through cutting-edge technologies and ever-growing investor pools. To view the hundreds of auctions currently being conducted, or for more information, visit marknetalliance.com.
Okay, we're back. We just talked to Brett Manley, who's the legislative director of Jeff Denham, who is the congressman from California, who is heading up H.R. 1734, the Civilian Property Realignment Act. I want to give you some ideas on points to discuss. What they're doing is trying to dispose of the properties, to sell the properties, to help bring the budget back in balance, to stop paying monies that the taxpayers give on security and maintenance and insurance on properties that are abandoned, that are no longer being used, that are not going to be used. Let's have a quick call. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. I heard an earlier caller. His name was Patrick.
Yes.
And you were telling him, thanking him for his great ideas, and I heard him give one idea. I just wanted to hear from you if I heard it correctly. One of his great ideas, according to you, was another bailout.
Well, no. Excuse me. And what's your name, sir?
Merrill.
Merrill. Well, thank you for calling in. I've got about 1 minute left before the end of the show.
Great. I'll wait for your answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, Mr. Pilati did say something like, we need some help here, and he did use the word bailout, and what we need are things like the auction bill that we just discussed, which is H.R. 1734, Civilian Property Realignment Act, and Jeff Denham is doing it. A couple of reasons why you want to do it is it's good for the government. You no longer pay for upkeep on properties and possible vandalism and depreciation. It's good for investors who would then fix properties up, the goods and services. It's good for real estate brokers. They would make commissions, and they would also have a change where people would be interested in buying things. Thank you for your call, caller. I've got 8 seconds left. Thank you so much for listening in on this very important Friday.